So in today's video, I'm going to be reacting to a phenomena referred to as virtuous pedophiles.
Have you ever abused a child?
No.
Have you ever wanted to?
I suppose I've thought of the possibility.
That intrigue, that drive has been there. That feels very dangerous to me.
If you had it your way, you would have sex with a child.
The attraction itself is involuntary. Something that's involuntary isn't a choice.
So do you watch like TV programs and stuff and look at a kid and be like, I fancy him?
Yes, that does happen.
Just knowing that someone is looking in your child in that way is a violation.
What age did you become aware that you liked younger kids?
It's really hard to get any paedophile to talk to a therapist at all. I have sometimes, while having sexual interactions with an adult, thought of a child. There are adults who like that.
Is that enabling? Is that, I don't know. It's very enabling behaviour if you've got adults coming together and doing that sort of role play.
In the past, I did do some volunteering with children.
You done volunteering to work with children?
Yeah.
Knowing you're attracted to them?
Being someone who works with children and young people, you know, I'm a qualified teacher myself, and I've been a youth worker, I've worked in the care system with children who've been through trauma, and, you know, due to my experiences and the training I've done, I'm constantly thinking about the people that are working alongside me. Putting himself in these situations where he's surrounded by children, he's endangering them children, because he said himself earlier in the interview that he's had those thoughts about committing the crime. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Edge of the Bed YouTube channel. I have been absolutely amazed with the growth of the channel recently, and I just want to thank every single one of you for joining us on this mission. You know, we're here for prevention. We're here for those difficult conversations around childhood trauma, around childhood abuse, but also we're here as someone with an interest in psychology, with an interest in prevention, like I said, but also current political situations, you know, that all align in the complexity of prevention. And it is such a complex space at the moment, and there are many difficult conversations that need to be had in a space that is so controversial because so many people have been hurt by it. And I can attest to that myself, being a survivor myself. So in today's video, I'm going to be reacting to a phenomena referred to as virtuous pedophiles. And this is something that I have seen a little bit online. I saw it quite a while back actually, and it was an interview with a guy, I believe was called Todd, and he did a video with Vice about his attraction to children, but he's non-offending. Now, this has expanded further since all those years back. I think it was filmed, must have been around 7 years ago, maybe more. This expanded, and there's more of these individuals coming out and speaking about this virtuous paedophile community who explain that they are not child molesters, they are not sexual abusers, they do not want to sexually abuse a child, but yet they still have this attraction to children. So I'm going to react to a video that was on Channel 4. It's a series that is focused around having difficult conversations, and it's usually an individual wearing a mask speaking to a panel of 3 or 4 people, about tough topics. And this one was a virtuous paedophile that came on. So he has a mask on, he's hiding his identity. And we're going to react to it, and as I react to it, I'm going to give my thoughts on the situation and existence of these virtuous paedophiles. Okay, so I'm looking down because I'm just watching it on my laptop here. And yeah, let's give it a watch and give our thoughts as we go.
What is a virtuous paedophile?
A virtuous paedophile is someone who has a sexual attraction to children, but who has decided that that shouldn't mean that they would abuse a child.
Do you class this as a sexual orientation or like mental disorder?
I think it's a phenomenon that happens in brains. I'm happy to accept the term disorder as much as I'm happy to accept the term sexual orientation.
See, this is where things are rocky for me. I think, so as I said, I've seen this phenomenon before discussed where these people come in and they say the virtuous paedophiles, they don't want to abuse children, they have that attraction. Now they're using platforms now, this is my first concern that I want to break down. They're using platforms to spread out the word and I guess in a way normalise it, and they say it's because they want to allow easier access to services for people who experience this attraction. But I don't think the dangers are highlighted effectively by these individuals. When we look at the existence of people that abuse children, it is a high prevalence, higher than anyone could understand. You know, there's been dark websites focused on child sexual abuse material, sites that produce that have over 50,000 members. So we're talking like it's a widespread issue, and they're offending paedophiles. So who knows the extent at which that this is going on. Obviously, when we look at the statistics, 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 6 boys in the UK are sexually abused before the age of 16. We have a real issue here, and when we have individuals such as virtuous paedophiles spreading a message online and joining in these communities, which I've seen as well, there's a risk of us normalising this. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit more in my next thought. When we discuss things online, such as these individuals do, and when we normalise a situation, the people who may be more willing or may be more driven to offend may be encouraged by this seemingly innocent and courageous message of virtuous paedophiles. But they may be encouraged and self-fulfilled enough to then go and commit the crime. And I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but I do think it's a risk. And we've seen the issue with the incel communities. And obviously that's a huge problem where, you know, we've seen men going out and attacking women because they're in these communities of men that just hate women because they won't sleep with them, or they struggle to gain a relationship with a woman. And then because they're joining these communities, they're seeing people talk online, I think it further perpetuates the issues they're facing and leads to outbursts, or leads to them having some fulfillment that what they're doing is right or what they're doing is supported. So in all around, my worry is that people who are likely to offend will feel supported and, I guess, accepted for the problem that they're facing, and in turn it may lead to internal acceptance and then them going on to offend. So that's my first worry. My second worry is something that he said, that he would like it to refer, he doesn't mind if it's referred to as a disorder or a sexual orientation. My problem is the latter. If we start to think of paedophilia as a sexual orientation, it concerns me, because when we talk sexual orientation, I think we're talking about things that are acceptable. That's what I would interpret as it's an acceptable behaviour to happen, where this is completely unnatural. Paedophilia is completely unnatural, and as I said before, this ideology of, I guess, it being a sexual orientation, I think could lead to people feeling acceptance and then going out and potentially going out and abusing children.
I have a child and I in no way, shape or form would ever feel comfortable with you even looking at them.
Right.
So I think then you should have maybe therapy or something, someone to talk to try and actually see if this is something that can be rewired in your brain.
So you think it could be changed?
I don't know, this is obviously why I'm here. I'd hope so.
Have you ever abused a child?
No.
Have you ever wanted to?
I suppose I've thought of the possibility.
He's thought of the possibility. So here we have someone who's a non-offending paedophile, but he's thought of the possibility. That intrigue, that drive has been there. That feels very dangerous to me. It feels very dangerous that he is admitting that on a public platform, even though he's hiding his identity. It worries me about the normalisation of it, and I will touch on at the end about my thoughts on, you know, what we do with these individuals who clearly have an issue, who clearly have, I think it's neurological, and, you know, studies have been done. Dr. Cantador is a famous psychologist that has covered this and found out, you know, paedophiles are born. It's something that happens within the womb. There's other studies that have shown different things, but I do believe it is a disorder. I believe that it's a mental health, maybe not mental health, but a neurological issue. And it's something that we shouldn't try to normalise. But yeah.
But what is it about a child that you're attracted to?
That's really difficult to answer. You could name different things, different physical features. You can name different things about personality. I don't see that that's going to be different to a list that some like heterosexual guy would give you about, you know.
But they're adults.
No, I totally get
You're
that.
attracted to children. If you had it your way, you would have sex with a child.
It's true that my brain obviously is, you know, has an attraction, and normally because most people can go ahead and ethically pursue at least sexual activity with the person they're attracted to. I know that's not the case. A lot of us don't ever abuse a child and don't ever seek to abuse a child.
Being a parent,
He's just said there, a lot of us don't go on to abuse a child. And a lot of us don't have the drive to abuse a child. But he's just said himself earlier on that he has felt that drive and he has felt that temptation there. So, yeah, it's a tough one.
do you understand why I'd feel uncomfortable having you in a room while my daughter is there?
Yes, I do understand, and I understand what you might assume I'd want to do. But on the other hand, there are perhaps men that I don't know if you're married, but there are perhaps men you wouldn't want to be in the same room as your wife. I know it's a different situation because she can...
That's a different situation. That's nothing like this situation.
You're talking.
I don't like the way that his thought patterns work then. And obviously, like, my opinion on this individual is mixed because they say they haven't abused a child, they say they haven't, looked at child pornographic material, which I think they touched on in a little bit. They haven't viewed it, they haven't done that, but my concern predominantly is with how it's being pushed out a lot more on social media, and even just this conversation happening on a public platform concerns me. Same with the other virtuous paedophile that went viral on YouTube in the Vice interview that I spoke on. He made a reference there saying, there'll be some men that you wouldn't feel comfortable your wife being in the same room with. He's not concerned about the relationship between his daughter and this man. He's concerned about what this man might do to his daughter, but he's seeing it as a complete different issue to what the father's seeing it as, which, it highlights the difference in the way his brain works, but also it's just not it's not a great mindset or safe mindset to have, I believe, around children.
As if you having these attractions, it's a harmless thing. Like, you don't think it's wrong even that you find a young child attractive.
The problem is that it's a spontaneously arising thing. The attraction itself is involuntary. Something that's involuntary isn't a choice.
So do you watch like TV programs and stuff and look at a kid and be like, I fancy him?
Yes, that does happen.
I find this crazy.
See, this is where it's also rocky, and why, if you have a child and you know that these virtuous paedophiles exist, and let's say, I don't know, in a world where they would maybe want to create, and these people can just say, yeah, I'm a virtuous paedophile, don't abuse children, but let me just come and sit in your house with your children, or let's just pretend like I'm like anyone else, let's not treat me any differently. Just knowing that someone is looking in your child in that way is a violation to the child and to the parent and the caregivers and the family members of that child. That, in my eyes, is a slight, I don't want to say abuse, but it is a violation of the child's safety, and no parent and no family member of the child is ever going to want someone to view their child in that way. And in that way, knowing that he thinks that way when he's even watching a TV show or sees a child, it's uncomfortable, and it's never going to be, I hope it's never going to be something that is normalised. And it's something that isn't safe, I don't believe. The temptations there, he's already addressed that, so we can't treat these people as anyone else, and that is just a fact of it, in my opinion.
Crazy.
That is mad. I can't understand you, I'm sorry. That is crazy to me. Is a young child like?
It's a worrying thing. The brain does things before you're even thinking consciously about them, and attraction is one of those things.
What age did you become aware that you liked younger kids?
About when I was 11, and I was attracted to 11-year-old boys. I would be attracted to my peers, and I would continue to be attracted to my peers when I was sort of 13, 14, 15. But by the time I'm 14, I'm noticing that I'm still attracted to the boys at school who are 11. I suddenly realised at that time that it also went younger than 11 as well.
How young?
The youngest age that I could possibly be attracted to would be probably about 7.
Were you abused as a child?
No, I wasn't sexually abused as a child. I was bullied badly. My family certainly were not abusive. I grew up in a loving household. I had an attraction that nobody wanted to know about at that time, which was being gay.
So I'm gay. I was the only gay in school and I had a lot of bullying through that. Some people believe that people that are gay should have therapy to sort of change that, and
That's right.
I don't think that's possible.
Right.
Do you think that the sexual attraction to children is similar in the way that it's something that can't be changed?
Exactly. It isn't similar in the way that it would be right or wrong to act on it.
Yeah.
It is similar probably, like, if you think about the science of it. I'm really careful. I don't like making the comparison because I think it's really stigmatising for gay people.
So do you have therapy now?
I don't have therapy now, but I have had in the past. It's really hard to get any paedophile to talk to a therapist at all. There's lots of reasons for that. We're very frightened. We think we might get reported even if we haven't done anything.
Do you have any attraction to adults as well?
See, this is the middle ground, isn't it? It's if someone like this gentleman who has this attraction to children, if they feel as though they have nowhere to go, what's going to happen to them? But I think there's a way around it rather than having these public conversations that, you know, normalise this. And I think the way to go about it would be to create campaigns where we say, and I've seen one done in Germany pretty well, and I'll reference it in the comments below, where we can make campaigns that are tailored to these individuals and where it clearly states that they can come and get some support from a counsellor or therapist for any troubles that they're experiencing in the realm of this attraction or disorder. But I will never agree with the fact of trying to normalise it in a conversation. And, you know, like the other individual from the Vice interview, he's an activist and he wants it to be so normalised that, you know, it can be welcomed into a family home and sat around with children. And I just think that it's very dangerous.
I've had adult relationships.
So can you find adults as attractive as you can children?
Pretty much.
And have you told people that you've gotten into relationships with that you've got this attraction?
A couple of times.
And how has that been received?
It's been received okay in the situations I was in. They weren't complicated situations, by which I mean there wasn't, for example, a child involved around or something like that.
Have you ever had it where you've had a sexual relationship with the person and fantasised about a child?
I have sometimes, yeah, while having sexual interactions with an adult, thought of a child. There are adults who like that.
Really?
Yeah, in a role play sense.
Wow.
Have you had many?
Is that enabling? Is that, I don't know. It's very enabling behaviour if you've got adults coming together and doing that sort of role play. I think it builds a craving for more. I don't think it's healthy. I think it should be avoided. Yeah, it's very uncomfortable, that, isn't it?
I haven't had many long-lasting relationships, and it's always a background factor that I think at some point this might come up. The fact of being a paedophile, and in a way you start to think just how fair is that on the other person, that they might have to hear that one day. And I don't think anyone who thinks about this situation for a second is going to be surprised that we don't disclose, because what on earth is in it for any human being?
What sort of contact have you had with a child?
The contact I've had with children is social contact, not sexual contact. In the past, I did do some volunteering with children.
What,
and
but you done volunteering to work with children?
Yeah.
Knowing you're attracted to them?
Knowing that I had the attraction, but also knowing even at that stage that I wasn't going to.
What, purposely knowing you're going to be working with the kids?
Well, what do you mean by purposely?
You wanted to be around kids. Is that so you can perv on them?
No.
So when you was there, you didn't fancy any of them?
Yes, I did, but it's not the same thing.
But how is it not the same thing?
Being someone who works with children and young people, I'm a qualified teacher myself, and I've been a youth worker. I've worked in the care system with children who've been through trauma, and due to my experiences and the training I've done, I'm constantly thinking about the people that are working alongside me, and it's probably unhealthy, but I have big questions for people, and I'm usually quite interrogative sometimes, and I think that this individual, he's a virtuous paedophile, he knows he's attracted to children, and he's putting himself in these situations where he's surrounded by children. He's endangering them children, because he said himself earlier in the interview that he's had those thoughts about committing the crime and wanting to commit that. So to put himself in a situation where he's around children, and think about it, he's volunteering. I wonder what his mind frame was in that point. What's the gain for him? And he's even said at the end, just to top it all off, that he fancied some of the children that he worked with. Nah, it is outrageous, and we have to draw a line here and say what's dangerous and what's acceptable and what's going to help prevention. And this is a larger conversation. Obviously, we need to communicate with non-offending pedophiles, because it is going to help us in our prevention, because we get to get inside the mind of one. The same with convicted pedophiles, to have conversations, those that are willing to turn their lives around, to have conversations while they're still in prison, and gain an insight so we can help in our own prevention methods. I believe that is crucial, but I don't believe normalising on a big platform is the answer. I just won't believe it, and this is why, because of the stories that he's telling, and he seems to have no recognition of the scale of what he's saying to some parents, and quite rightly, as you can see, they're outraged.
How is it not the same thing?
I'm not going to say like, oh, it was absolutely fine, it was perfect, every paedophile should do it. Nothing bad happened. And certainly those children would have never had any idea if I had had an attraction.
Would you ever think what the parents would think about that?
I know that the parents would hate that.
I know that the parents would hate that, so why do it? He's already admitting that he's going to violate whatever thoughts or feelings they have towards the parents, and like I said earlier, just knowing that a paedophile is looking at your child like that is a violation of the child's rights. It's hard to say, but I do think it just isn't right for him to put himself in that situation and to have these attractions as such.
I think that anybody that has children should have a right to have that disclosed.
I do understand why you say it, that everybody should have the right to have people like me just disclose, but you have to be realistic about what the penalties are for doing so. If I told one person, I have no control at that point over who they might tell and what that person's attitude might be.
So you would be involved in people's lives with children and just not say?
What's the alternative? The alternative is
not be around
to live alone
children
forever. I do want people to know.
What is the alternative? And she said to avoid children. And sadly for these individuals, it's kind of like, it is safer, and it's very sad, and it's sad in terms of the fact that their life is altered by something that they may not be able to control. But it isn't sad in the fact that it's going to protect children, and if they are really virtuous, then they need to respect that and put themselves in situations where they're going to keep children safe. And
consequences, feeling it's morally wrong, and also I don't think that would be something that would be an outlet for me.
You still fantasise about it though?
Yep.
So deep down, you feel you're not doing nothing wrong?
I haven't broken the law. Yes, in myself, I feel like I didn't choose the attraction. I don't think it's unreasonable that I get some kind of sexual life through phases where I felt certainly the best way out is to die. And I plan to die fairly often, to be honest. I think the decision you end up making is, if you're not going to die, what are you going to do? And so you have to have some quality of life somehow.
Do you talk to other people who's attracted to kids online?
So the community I'm in, so it's like a bulletin board, no images that can be shared. That's not technologically possible. And there are rules about the way that you can talk about paedophilia.
But you still communicate with people who have committed crimes against kids.
Inevitably, yes, sometimes you will speak to someone who's, for example, used child sexual abuse material online.
It seems like, to me, these child forums, you're all just enabling one another, really.
Enabling.
I have to agree in some sense to what this lady said. I think that mix, you know, I'm all for support groups when people are having mental health struggles, but it's like if they're communicating with offending paedophiles, who's to say that they're not going to be tempted by those individuals that have committed those crimes? It's like, you know, the story of when someone goes into prison for petty crime, they come out and commit further crimes because of the conversations and the lessons I've had in prison with more serious criminals. And I guess, you know, it can be applied to that in a social context, that they could skew the norms. These, you know, paedophiles that have committed crimes could skew the norms of the ones that are virtuous. And yeah, they're all on this bulletin board and they can't show photos, but who's saying that these private conversations aren't happening elsewhere and they're using it as recruitment? Because these sites exist in the dark web as well. I don't think people understand the scale of it, but there are sites that have thousands of men that are sharing sexual images of children. And who's saying that these sort of things aren't going to recruit that? And, you know, it gives people a space to infiltrate that. And I don't know, it just makes me uncomfortable that space exists.
What?
Explain to me then.
Yeah.
Make me understand. How do you support one another on these forums then?
People come along. Usually the problem they're presenting with is that they're feeling enormous loneliness. We don't encourage people to do illegal things.
Why wear a mask?
I'm wearing a mask, obviously, because I'm just scared for my physical safety. Obviously, I'd lose my job if it became known that I was doing something like this.
I know what his job is too, because he said he's volunteered with children and young people. I wonder if his job is related to children, or in some context, why would he have volunteered? Was it part of his career progression? You know, it does make you think.
To at least have had a chance of, before I go, of having had some of that acceptance that I was really craving, in spite of what I am. I think the change I'd like to see is that we understand more about where paedophilia is a risk, that not only paedophiles can have some role in society without just immediately losing it because that fact is known.
It's not going to happen. People ain't going to work with you knowing that you fancy kids.
I find it difficult because I don't think that you should personally be around children, but then I also, on the flip side, feel like this is probably something that is wired in your brain and you can't help it. I don't think that you're this horrible, evil person, and I think that there should be more conversation, not to excuse it, but just to allow people to, one, get help, and to hopefully stop any kids being abused in the future.
That was a great monologue from her, and I have to agree with her in some sense. Well, I have to agree with her at all. I can't fault anything she said there. You know, there has to be that available support, and it's how we advertise that support for these individuals that's the key. Because mistakes can be made in the way that, you know, language is very important, and how we portray things is very important. And I just think, you know, not so much this video, but like I said, other virtuous paedophiles that have made content themselves and are building an online community, it's kind of like, we're not trying to normalise it, we're trying to protect children, and we're trying to help your quality of life if you are non-offending, but also we're not going to, you know, prioritise that over the safety of children.
I feel like this whole situation for you is a little bit hopeless. It's hard for me to try and even empathise with you. To me, I just think it's a bit of a lost cause.
And that's the tough bit, isn't it? And what she's finished off with there, it's a lost cause. It, you know, it doesn't provide answers for prevention. It doesn't provide answers for, I don't think it is a lost cause. I think we can, take lessons from this guy's, I guess, story. But like I said, the dangers do exist there.
It's very difficult, and I'm scared that this is going to be a huge, huge mistake, a life-changing mistake. I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't prepared for the possibility that that's what it's going to be. We need a world where people can walk into a room and talk about this, and they don't end up dead.
I don't think he's an evil person. I take away from this knowing now that not all paedophiles are. I do think he's a risk, but I don't think that, I didn't know that there was a paedophile that wasn't going to intentionally go out and molest children.
Yeah, I think that definitely was a learning curve. It's definitely something that needs to be spoken about. But in Mouse's case, I just think his mentality is just a bit hopeless.
And that's that. I think, to, I guess, summon or collect my thoughts around it, this is a hugely complex issue, and it's part of a wider issue of, the existence of child sexual abuse in our society and all the issues that surround that. Now, I want to talk about the individual Mouse, as he was called himself. I think I would agree that he is a risk with some of the things that he said and the situations that he's put himself in, and the mindset that, he thinks he should be allowed to be around children, yet having the clear description earlier on that he has those thoughts about committing the crime sometimes. And those just don't work hand in hand, do they? It's not a viable solution. But like I said, if we had some advertisement for support for these individuals that, didn't attempt to normalise it in the same sense of like other resources, and I said I'll link that video to the previous one that was done on Vice. I think we've really got to watch how we talk about this, and I understand that they need help, and it will prevent abuse potentially if they are able to receive some support. But in the same sense, there's a risk of this, them creating platforms and then people feeling supported and accepted to the extent that an individual who is likely to commit may be more likely to commit, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's my thoughts on today's video. I think, like I said, the issue is so it is huge and it's a complex area, and I think, we can learn a lot from these conversations. But again, my final point is just that caution, just being careful with how we present this so we don't normalise this and lead to further abuse of children. We're looking to prevent, we're looking to learn lessons and lower this down to, the statistics vary, but we're talking like 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 4 girls. And it's too, I think child sexual abuse is leading to so many other societal problems. And we know that child sexual abuse and childhood trauma leads to chronic illnesses. And, I think there's not enough focus on a government point of view, especially in the UK, of preventing this. And this is why I do the things I do and why I'm so passionate about it. And yeah, that's all I have to say for today. So I want to thank anyone who's watched it to this point. If you have any thoughts, feel free to comment. If you disagree with anything I've said in this video, please comment. I'd love to hash it out with you. And any sort of, professional psychologists, psychiatrists who have thoughts on this, I'd love to have a conversation if you'd want to come onto the page and talk through that. I'd love to hear what you want to see more of as well, survivors and people who are just, activists or people who work with children and young people, what you'd like to hear from me as a survivor, as someone who's done a lot of training, and someone who has a great insight into this issue. So yeah, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.